Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Ted Betancourt. Nice to have you here at our Peabody School Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024, and we are beginning our meeting tonight at 7:20 p.m. Our minutes for the meeting are being taken by our recording secretary, Laura Bowe. We are being broadcast live on PAT, Peabody Television, and as always, we're going to be live streaming. If there's anybody that would like to join us during public participation online, we'll bring you in at that time. So I'd like to first start off, if everybody could please stand. We're going to have some terrific students here from the Carroll School that are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And actually, before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, if we could just have a moment of silence, then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll introduce our special guest tonight. Okay, you guys ready? All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terrific, thank you, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Vidala for some introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very excited today to have the Carroll School here today. So I want to thank Principal Smith and Assistant Principal Coffin for being here as well. We have a presentation from some of our wonderful students, and you may recall that last year we initiated a new award called the Hope Award, and we have this vision of hope for our students, and we want to really identify people that exemplify the tenets of hope. And in August we gave, and I know you didn't know this was coming, but I don't want to embarrass you a little bit, but in August, we gave initial awards to our faculty, and Ms. Sue Velagore from the Carroll was the recipient, the first recipient of the Faculty Hope Award for all the wonderful things that she does. So she's here tonight, and she, yes, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. She does amazing things in the classroom and outside the classroom and really contributes. So she exemplifies hope on a daily basis, and she's done something very special in her classroom that she came to share with us tonight. So I'll turn it over to you, and you can explain a little bit about that.
Good evening. So when I was surprised with the Hope Award, I sat back when they had the words on the, like it was on the screen, and I said, oh, I don't have to worry about this. And then my name popped up, and all my colleagues are going, you gotta get up now. But anyway, I thought it was a really good idea because he was saying that it was something that they would pay it forward to other faculty throughout the year. And so when I took mine, I went to my classroom, and I was thinking about maybe doing something with the students. I thought it would be really nice if I would introduce the Hope Award to my classroom, and then I would tell them that each week or a month or whatever I was gonna do, we were gonna pass it forward to each of our classmates. So the first one I gave to, and I saw how everyone was so excited. So I was like, they're going to come up with the acronym of HOPE. So I would have lunch with whoever won it, and I would say, okay, who would you like to give it to? And they would tell me a name, and I would say, okay, now you can't have that person unless you can come up with something for hope. Do we want high expectations? Do we want honesty? What is something hardworking? And so the students come up with what they want me to put on the Hope Award, and we give the certificate. The kids get the little award. I made a little award. And I put candy in it because when I received mine, I got candy in it. So I put Smarties. I give them 5 Smarties for one for each day. And it's worked out great. And so I thought that maybe the students could tell you how they felt about it. So I'm going to start with Isaiah Green.
Good afternoon. My name is...
It's okay.
My name is Isaiah Green, and I am really happy that I got the Hope Award, and
How did you feel about it?
I feel happy that I got it, and I am gonna, how do you say it? Pay it forward to make them feel special, happy, and encouraged.
And encouraged, good. All right, and then we have Liliana Gonzalez.
When I received the Hope Award, I felt very proud and excited to pass it on to another deserving student. While I was choosing what each letter of hope would stand for, I thought of the next recipient's different and important character traits that make them the perfect Hope Award recipient. I think that Ms. Felgore's Student Hope Award is a great way of recognizing good behavior in the classroom. I felt very proud and can't wait to see the rest of my classmates receive the Hope Award.
Okay, next we have Lucas Rodriguez.
I liked receiving the Hope Award, and that I liked that I could pay it forward, that a next person can have the joy that I got when receiving the Hope Award. So I really liked that idea of it being in the classroom.
Was it hard to pick?
Yeah, it was really hard to pick. So.
Okay, and now we have Kylie Espinoza.
Great. Thank you so much. So we've really been focused on welcoming our students in, creating a school environment and classroom environments that are welcoming and the kids feel like they belong and they have some ownership of that. And I think this is just a wonderful example of that. So it goes with our whole theme of sense of belonging this year, and it's wonderful to hear the kids really talk about that. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. That was a terrific job, each of you. That was amazing. Excellent. Not easy to get up and speak, and you guys did a terrific job. So thank you. Any questions for our students or anybody from the Carroll School? Anything? Yep, Mr. Swanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the students, you guys did, as the mayor said, phenomenal job with your presentations. I was really impressed with the wording you used up here that you're sharing with us, how you looked at your classmates and you dug in and used some really strong words up there, which means you understood what you were doing and how you were making them feel better. I want you guys to carry this forward because as you grow, you're going to come into more challenges and it's going to become more difficult. But start with what you're learning here and always bring forward your kindness to yourself and bring it out of others as well, because it's a great start to it. You guys did a phenomenal job.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Anybody else have any questions for our students?
Do a quick photo?
Yeah, can we do a quick photo? Yeah. okay if we put these on social media, city media, is that okay? Yeah, you should be. Student, yep. Great job, Carroll School. Nice to have you all here. Thank you. Thank you, parents. Thank you, families. Bye, Mian. Yep. All right, I see we have some more of our outstanding students here, a couple from the high school. So if there's no
Yes.
objection, can we go right to the Student Advisory Council?
Yes, I'd like to welcome up Ms. Peabody and Catherine and Ian to give us the Student Advisory Council report.
Hello, patrons of public education. I would just like to apologize for my attire. I just came from a rehearsal, so I apologize for that. But we're the PVMHS Student Council, and we would like to inform you about the happenings that are going on at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. Tonight we will talk about the highlights and the going-ons at Peabody High and the priorities and looking forward. Like, this year happened, but now we're going to look forward and into the future and take that big step that we're planning on. Some of the highlights that are going on: we are in the midst of our fourth quarter. Students have met with guidance and planned out their schedules for the schools next year. And Stage 1's competition show, The Whale, won a state championships, and now they are working on the spring show, Puffs. Some other highlights and going on: spring sports are now underway. Baseball is, I heard that they got a win, actually. Softball, too, we're doing really well. Boys and girls indoor track, girls lacrosse, boys tennis, and girls tennis. They're all doing phenomenal, or so I've heard. Some other things that are happening: monthly grade level meetings are continuing. I actually had mine today. The freshman and sophomore semi-formal was on March 1st and made about $500 for the joined together and then split apart. The junior prom was on March 14th, and Student Government Day on April 4th, ran by our great Miss P. It was a big success, and we met a ton of you guys and shadowed. Some other stuff that's going on: MCAS began last month for 10th grade. The May MCAS is going to be for the math and for 10th grade, and June is, as we step forward, June is going to be the biology MCAS for the 9th graders. The seniors' last day is going to be May 24th. Some other things that are happening: National Honor Society had inductees on April 9th. Peer mediators have been presented to the classes and facility that promoted their program, and fundraising is a key focus for all grade levels. Publicity, collaborating, event sharing, stuff like that. Just taking a step forward in fundraising, as we talked about with you guys. Looking at what we're looking to improve on and going beyond, we would like to continue and improve communication, use the technology that we had, and we're planning next year, hopefully, to add multilingual announcements and streamlining with Principal Randall and other leadership and faculty members. Some other things that are coming up: we are trying to improve communication via Aspen by putting announcements linked on the home screen, and new Windows screen on Chromebooks. We are also looking to enhance safety and review current fire drill protocols and meeting places, and troubleshoot traffic flow after school. ahead on this one.
Okay. Unfortunately, the potholes have been ongoing, and we hope to have them repaired as soon as possible before like any bad, anything bad happens, pretty much. And I've noticed, and other students have noticed, that screens, like the, I guess, bug screens, are missing from some of the windows in the classrooms, and that can be seen as a safety hazard when the windows are open, and we hope to get that repaired as soon as possible.
Another thing to follow up on, we would like to streamline e-payments and check cash access. It's inconsistent for most. Not many people have, a checkbook handy or cash, and everybody's sort of moving on to the sort of credit card thing and like Venmo and all those. So we were wondering if we could sort of have our own flip on that and make it school appropriate, A, and B, safe for people's bank accounts to run. Maybe we could use like My School Bucks, because I know we've been using that for a little bit. Maybe we could try and, instead of just making it for lunches, we could probably streamline that and make more money off of My School Bucks for like things like fundraisers, possibly. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Well, thank you both. That was great. I took a note, but we in fact met yesterday about the potholes. That is a problem, a big problem. So I think you should see some improvement soon. This is that time of year. Potholes are everywhere and things. So, but it is very bad at the high school, the student parking lot in particular. So give us a little time, but we're working on that. Some other good ideas that I know we'll be following up on.
Yeah, definitely the Cash App.
Yeah, that sounds
the
interesting,
cashless payments, we are very interested in that. We want to get that going. There's some red tape that we have to follow up on, but continue to bring it up because it is something that we are interested in doing, and we would like to try to make that happen for you guys for next year.
That's great, because as a fundraiser myself, when like I'm running stuff and like people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, you have cash?" And then I'm like, "Oh, do you have cash?" And then they're like, "Oh, do you have Venmo?" And then I'm like, "Oh no," like it's like, I feel like as a society, we're just moving forward from that whole cash to cash transaction. So I feel like moving forward to an electronic form of payment, I feel like not only will give us money, obviously, it will create like a sense, like we will probably be one of the first schools to streamline this sort of payment, and we could be the builder of something beautiful. And I feel like if we start on it now, we can really, be the builder of it.
I hope you consider running for office someday. Really, I'm serious. The whale blew me away. That was amazing. I love this time of year where I get to see you and the full house and the chorale and everybody singing, which is great. And the sports teams are off. They are off to a tremendous start. I think we have a number of teams in first place already. And
Oh, yeah.
so it's just continuing. We're killing it, crushing it in the performing arts, crushing it in sports. So it's terrific. Any questions, comments? This is done.
Catherine, just to give you some hope, the PTOs are facing the same problem that the students are as far as the cash versus credit issue. So I know that the business manager, Mr. Rippon, has been working on it too to see what we can do. Hopefully we'll have something all in place for next school year, I would imagine, and that way it will help all the groups. One of the things that I do have a question about was, wait a minute, let me see. On the screens, could we get a list, perhaps from Ms. Randall or at the high school, could we get a list of the classrooms that need new screens to see how many there are? It is something, it's an ongoing problem, and if they can be repaired, then we will definitely look into doing that. it is a problem, especially for kids who are allergic to bee stings. I know that's always a big worry, but I have no idea how prevalent it is in the classrooms.
As somebody who's in one of the classrooms without a window screen, it is kind of prevalent. Miss Barkley's class, formerly Mr. Tella's class, there are a total of 4 windows that are on, I think I would say, the east side of the building into the courtyard, and none of them are screened. And she opens the windows often because it does get hot in there, and a lot of kids have noticed it. And also in one of my other classes, it is prevalent, and the window screen is literally on the side of the classroom. So it is a very prevalent issue. There's a lot. There's a lot of window screens that are missing,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Thank you, yeah, so it's not just
the house.
isolated one or two, it's strings of them, okay. And then, on the fundraising, you said that you're going to do collaborating and event sharing. What type of fundraising are the classes doing at the school offhand? I know there's a lot going on with calendars, raffle calendars, but what else are the students doing?
Well, yes, the senior class, Elijah Swanson, did the calendars with the senior class, and it went pretty well, to my knowledge. And we were doing a lot of itsy-bitsy, like, fundraisers, like, restaurants and whatnot. There was a Maki fundraiser, again, done by the senior class. And what we mean by conjoining the fundraising is that, for example, the freshman, sophomore, semi-formal, originally, I met up with the class presidents for the freshmen, and I was like, hey, we're really good friends. I know you guys. How about we collaborate? And we could probably either split it by ticket sales or 50-50. And we are just sort of, instead of giving that sort of rift between grades, we're sort of creating a sense of cohesion between grades by fundraising with them and creating a sense of teamwork between the class officers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Swanson?
Thank you. To Mrs. Dunn, fundraising due to the COVID kind of dropped off, and last year was a first really good class that really got that going again. They've done a really good job teaching now seniors class, and I know that senior class is sharing information, and they're getting it all going. And what I'm encouraged is that this senior class is teaching the junior class is going to the sophomores and the freshmen. And then as Catherine said, it's a collaboration, and they've really worked to build a community amongst themselves to support from the top down to the freshmen. It's impressive itself. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you. I know you're a big part of that collaboration, so thank you for that as well.
For the sophomores, we're running a chocolate fundraiser, and we're, after school, we're selling chocolate, so that's also contributing a lot to our budget and running proms and whatnot. Just mainly after COVID, because COVID happened, we're creating a sense of cohesion between not just the grades, creating a sense of cohesion between Peabody High and making sure morale is up and people are together. Because I feel like if COVID, we were away from people for so long that now is the time where it's like, yeah, you're a part of Peabody High. What pride comes with that? What pride can we find through that? So I feel like creating those areas where the community can get involved, it creates a sense of like safety in between the school because morale will be up.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Mrs. Dunn, did you want to? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Swanson, you still have the floor.
Sorry. I just want, I guess I'm going to put this out to Ms. Randall. Is Catherine part of the committee to make sure when the kids come up from the Higgins to promote Peabody High? If not, I strongly recommend you doing an awesome job.
I could put on a bull costume.
Good idea. Mrs. Dunn?
One of the things I think that did end up falling by the wayside, and it was kind of sad, there were very traditional class fundraisers that people would look forward to each year, and those all stopped. And I don't know if they are continuing or not, but they were really good, and you'd know that the sophomores were going to sell Christmas trees, and at graduation, each grade, somebody sold water at graduation, somebody sold flowers. There was a third item, I can't remember what it was. Those were all very traditional, and then it stopped, and it's never really kind of picked back up. And it was very good for the class officers because they knew that they had a fundraiser that was going to be well supported, because it had been supported through the years. If you could get some of those back, that might help. And as far as the collaboration between the classes, it used to be, other than, junior prom and senior prom, that there were dances. There was a dance at Halloween. There were various events where the whole school benefited from that money. I don't know how it was divided years ago. It was a separate issue, but it would be good to see you kids be able to enjoy a lot of those activities, because it helped everybody, and it was something that you could always count on and look forward to, and it allowed classes too to be able to make plans, so that in your freshman year, if you were working toward your senior year, you were able to start saving some money toward the events in the senior year and have a small fund that you could use for the down payments for the prom, or the different things that took place. So I do hope you can get back to that, because it really does work.
You make an excellent point. We were actually talking about this as class officers and as a student council. That tradition is a big thing, and tradition is great. But I feel like instead of sticking on those traditions, maybe we can create new ones. Because
yeah, you should. You should.
COVID stopped everything for so long that I feel like we had a switch in not just society, but in school systems in general. So those traditions that might have worked back then, maybe they're not creating as much traction as they would back then now. So I feel like as a school, we could move forward into that. We're getting into those, dipping into new traditions that are creating, like the dodgeball tournament that has been happening since I was a freshman, which is not long ago, but still, since I was a freshman, and creating those mini traditions. We're planning for the freshman and sophomore semi-formal to be a reoccurring fundraiser. Not just a fundraiser, just a fun night. And I feel like, although back then a lot of fundraisers worked that were traditional, and you make an excellent point, they create like a sense of schedule, like, oh, I can do this then. I feel like as a school, we can move forward and create that adapted, sort of fit the puzzle piece into the correct puzzle situation.
No, I agree. I also think, though, that you do have to watch out that you don't compete with other classes when they have an anticipated fundraiser, and then another class goes and does that fundraiser. It impacts on both. So there has to be some type of communication and coordination among the 4 grades, because that's really important.
Yeah, we have this will be nice to know, we have a color-coded spreadsheet of fundraisers, so then we make sure nobody's stepping on anybody's toes.
Good.
And the specific, when fundraisers get approved, a lot of the class officers, we have this sort of, I would like to say we're a very coherent group. We're very cohesive with each other. We work well with each other. So I feel like if there is any stepping on toes, I feel like the seniority rule will take over that sort of problem, and we could work our way around it.
Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Dunn. All right. Well, Catherine, Ian, thank you both so much. This was great.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If we could go out of order, we just have one more.
Yep,
Yes.
absolutely.
All right, thank you so much. If we could just jump over number 3, we can come back to that during the superintendent's report, but we have a field trip that 2 of our high school teachers have proposed. We have Miss Sarah Hall and Miss May Taylor have proposed, and just like to give you guys just a quick overview of this wonderful trip to Ecuador, and just hear a little bit more about that. So, take it away.
educational tours. Oh, that one works? This one's not? Sorry. Oh, it's much louder. EF has over 55 years of experience. Staff is on the ground all over the place, so in Ecuador, there will be staff, EF staff. It's the world leader in international education, and it's accredited just like our school. So they have companies come in and check them all out. Other nearby schools that travel with EF include Saugus, Lynn English, Lynn Classical, Danvers, and Marblehead. And other mass schools going to Ecuador include Braintree, Rockland, Scituate. Braintree actually just came back, and they really enjoyed it. They get to go snorkeling. I didn't forward this, I apologize. So April 18th to April 28th of 2025, it's an 11-day tour. They do ask for some flexibility one day before or after in case anything goes wrong with the flights or anything like that. We could be combined with another school. I do want to talk about safety. They query check or background check every adult on the trip. So if we are combined with a school, we know that the adults are safe. I can't say anything about the kids. But included in the itinerary is airfare, hotel, meals, a tour director, transportation, local guides, and entrances to the landmarks and attractions. Students have to come up with passports, baggage fees, snacks, and some lunches, not all. EF gives a general liability insurance to protect the school. Background check for adult travelers, I said that. And a COVID care promise. If your child is diagnosed with COVID while on tour, we will coordinate and facilitate support services and logistics, including translation services, connections with local health care providers, communication with family, and flights home at no additional cost. So there's that. There is cancellation policies. 45 days or less prior to departure, no refund will be issued, but 45 or more, you can get refunds. There is a global travel protection plan, which all the students that come with us will get. I think it's $200 more, but if they get in before June, that $200 is waived. EF has a immense safety and incident response team, again, all over the countries, rigorous health standards, and a 24/7 tour director and chaperone team support. Once they go to Ecuador, they're gonna come home changed. They're gonna be totally different people. I've been on 2 tours, one when I was in high school and one 4 years ago. And the one in high school, I can't say enough about. It was just like a totally eye-opening experience. I went to Europe, and I can't tell you how life-changing that really was. There's a personal development, there's a growth mindset. You do stuff. I went to Costa Rica 4 years ago, and we helped clean the beach and analyzed the trash on the beach. You know, most of them was water bottles, but, you know, what other litter was there? So it's actually educational. It's not just, ooh, sorry. It's not just, you know, a general sightseeing trip.
I think you've given us a good overview, Mrs. Hall. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
No, it was very good. Any questions? Mrs. Dunn?
yes.
Now, this is through EF?
EF tours, yes.
Okay. I'll be honest, I would love to see, like, the brochure that tells all about the trip. Is it
Okay.
is it a science trip or
Yes.
foreign language? Oh, okay.
Ecosystems.
Because it didn't seem clear, other than Galapagos Island. I know that involves all kinds of interesting animals.
This is the actual itinerary.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
We go to Quito, we go to the rainforest. Sorry. Quito, the rainforest is another ecosystem. But it's quite a trip. I mean, 10 days, a day for travel. It's 11 days, but take off a day for travel. It's under $5,000, and there's crowdsource funding. They set up a website for you. There's scholarships, customizable.
And is it, oh, if I could, Ms. Mayor,
No, that's fine.
is it geared to a specific grade or specific curriculum at the high school?
High school, no.
Just high school science?
High school, mostly
okay.
science.
Okay, all right. And I know we've always had questions about the insurance policy to make sure that that's okay. If anybody want to see that? Yeah. Thank you for showing this, Ed. I would like to know if you could get that copy sent out to all of us afterwards,
Absolutely.
too. Thank you. Okay, and the students would travel with possibly with other schools? on the trip?
Possibly with other schools. When I went to Costa Rica, I traveled with a school from Connecticut, but we all flew down to Costa Rica together as one school and then met up at the airport with the other school.
Okay, all right. And then what is the ratio adult to student on the?
6 to 1.
Chaperone? 6 to 1, okay. So if you have more than 12 students go on the trip, who would you use for chaperones at that point?
I've had other science teachers say, "Why didn't you ask me?"
Okay.
I'm sure somebody will jump aboard.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Any other questions? Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hall, for coming and organizing this and presenting it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm always an advocate for these type of trips. I feel like I'm more of a immersion type of learner, hands-on, being there. I'll never forget going to Ford's Theater, and I think I'll always, have this huge passion for Lincoln, because you were there, right? When you
Right.
see it in person, it's different, right? So when you come to us with these type of things, I'm always in favor of it. I love it. I think it's great, and I appreciate the time that you're given to do this, too. Some of the questions were answered. I think, did you have a minimum or a maximum amount of students that could go?
No,
Okay.
I just have to have a 6 to 1 ratio.
Okay. And you said there was a fundraising option, maybe for some kids who
Yep.
can't afford?
Yep, we can do, the gentleman I'm working with suggested a Chipotle fundraiser. There's specific fundraisers we can do. They have the crowdsource funding, they have the website for funding, and then we can do individual fundraisers for the trip as a whole.
Okay. And EF Tours, we've worked with them before. I think they did the Italy trip. They're very reputable. We've been with them before. I appreciate looking at the places that you're going to, though, just out of curiosity. Thank you. I
Oh, you're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Any other questions for Mrs. Hall? All right, do we have a motion or action we want to take?
Motion to approve the field trip to Ecuador for the dates of 4/18/25 through 4/28/25.
Second.
Terrific, thank you. You've heard the motion made by Mrs. Carpenter for approval, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Any comments? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for coming in.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Mayor, if we want to go back to I know we have some
Oh,
other
thank you.
agenda items before, and then I'll finish the superintendent's report when we get back to that.
Okay, so let's go back to the agenda item. We do have minutes from the March 26, 2024 regular school committee meeting for discussion and adoption. I'll open that up.
Motion to receive and approve with an amendment.
Okay. I have a second, Mr.
Second.
Swanson? So you've heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn for approval, seconded by Mr. Swanson. We do have a change.
Yes, this would be on page 2 of the minutes, under liaison to parent and student advisory boards on the subcommittee report. Mrs. Dunn stated a meeting will be held tomorrow night. I just want to be specific. It was a meeting of the parent advisory board will be held tomorrow night. And then down by the bottom of the page, it was from the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. Mr. Hockman asked about additional money from the city for school repairs. Mr. Rippon answered his question, but I don't know what the answer was. So I'm just wondering if we could get that and put it into the minutes. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, we have the motion on the floor with those changes identified by Mrs. Dunn. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson? Yes. Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Present.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We have a number of warrants tonight under approval of bills. Mr. Olympio, can I turn it over to you?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5661, dated April 23rd, 2024, in the amount of $4,430.54, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mr. Olympio for approval of warrant number 5661, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio? Mrs. Carpenter? Yes. Mr. Miko?
Okay, no, I'm on now. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5664, dated April 23rd, 2024, in the amount of $123,813.27, subject to audit.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Mr. Olympio for approval of warrant number 5664, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5665, dated April 23rd, 2024, in the amount of $1,567,810.85, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mr. Olympio for approval of warrant number 5665, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5673, dated April 23rd, 2024, in the amount of $784,248.62, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. You've heard the motion for approval of warrant number 5673, seconded by Mr. Amico, even though it was a close one. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5674, dated April 23rd, 2024, in the amount of $122,346.92, subject to audit.
Second.
Question.
Thank you. You've heard the motion made by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mr. Amico. On the motion, Mrs. Dunn?
Okay. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. The way that we got them in the minutes, wait, I just want to make sure I'm voting on the right one. All right, 123, 812. That's warrant number 2. All right, warrant number 1 is really warrant number 5. Okay, I can vote. Thank you. Yep.
This
Yes.
is on warrant number 5674. Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Next item, continued business, item number 4. Mrs. Dunn, any update on the Welch School project today?
Yes. We are 99.99% complete with the Welch. There are 10 items left on the punch list, and they've probably been done today. So I'm really very, very happy to report that. They worked all during the vacation to get most of the outdoor work done, and thankfully the weather held, and they were able to complete quite a bit. The seating and loaming was done last week. The swing gates were put in to stop people from driving around back. The cement out front, the cement walkway was repaired because some of it had crumbled and it needed to be redone. So they had to dig it up and replace it. They also put in pads to hold the bicycle racks, and a lot of work really was done all last week. So right now, what's going on is money. We're looking at the budget and the figures, going back and forth with the MSBA. So when that's all settled, we'll have more details to give to you. Normally, every week for the past, oh my goodness, what was it, Dr. Vidala, 89 meetings we had? I think it was 89 meetings. Every Wednesday was an owner, architect, and construction meeting. We are not going to have one tomorrow because that was to go over all the items that needed to be completed. What's coming up will be a Welch School Building Committee meeting. And we can't do that yet until we have the facts and figures ready to give to the members, to give them an update on the financing and all the final details of the project. So that will be scheduled shortly, but I really am so happy to tell you that everything's done, except for the roof. That's a whole nother story. But everything else on the project is completed, and I think everybody's going to be really happy with it. It was a really interesting project. A lot of things that I want to, give to the mayor, information on how that project went and how it unfolded, and really, the next part is a party. So that's going to be the best part.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. That's terrific. That's great news.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Vidala, we'll go back to you for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 3 quick items left. This one is item number 2, which is the library surplus books. In your packet, there's a letter from Ms. Julie Pease. As you may recall, we worked very closely with Mrs. Dunn to create a policy about weeding books and sort of eliminating some of the books that they have. So we have a letter from Mrs. Pease. This is the first edition of that. So it's sort of taking books that are no longer used out of supply and ensuring that they are in good condition and whatnot. We take the books that are no longer going to be used, dedicate them as surplus, and then she is able to donate them and as part of the sophomore class Savers fundraiser, bring some money back into the class. So this initial one, as you can see in her report, will bring in $466 for books that we can donate. We dedicate them as surplus, and then we're able to donate them and raise money for the sophomore class. So what we'd be looking for is a motion to accept the recommendation, which would be to declare these as surplus and then donate them so that the sophomore class may receive the funding.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request to declare $466 of books from the high school as surplus, and that the funding will be donated to the sophomore class. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. You've heard the motion, seconded by Mr. Swanson. Roll call vote. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item, we'll jump to item number 4, which is just an update on high-quality instructional materials, HQIM adoption. You may recall we did this for our elementary ELA curriculum, and we adopted the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt HMH into reading, and we've been going through the process for that. These are very updated materials. high quality. We went through the entire process, and we're really seeing some great results. So after we did the K-5 adoption for literature, we wanted to look at a 6 through 12 adoption, as well as some middle school math and science materials. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Chase to talk about an update on where we are in that process.
Alrighty. So if you look at the slide that's up there now, this shows the process as a multi-year project that we work on as a group. So if you look at the first 2 months of the school year, that's when we establish a curriculum council. And basically that is DESE speak for a group of brave teachers and administrators to come forward and say, we're pretty comfortable with what we have right now, but we know that there's other stuff out there that we'd like to explore. And they take that leap of faith and put their best effort forward to take a look at what materials are out there on the landscape and then narrow things down to finally get to 2 competitors where we're looking very closely through field testing later on in the year. So that's about 2 months. 4 to 6 months, we spend that time narrowing choices and investigating what's out there, looking at what might be a good fit for our students and for our teachers. We look at things like ease of use, whether the materials are good for all learners, if they're organized in a way that reflect the frameworks in the way that we would like, and then we work on narrowing the choices down to a couple of them. Once we get through field testing, we gather feedback from families, we gather feedback from teachers, from students, and we try to get as many voices in there as possible. And from there, we end up selecting one of the 2 materials that we field test. Then it's time to launch. So it feels like that's a whole lot of work at the beginning of the year, and that's just the beginning. The next piece of it is launching the materials and getting people up to date on what the materials look like when you take them out of the box, how you start to use them, how you start to craft curriculum planning around them, and really getting comfortable with them. So DESE uses the expression of try, do, own. Year 1 in this multi-year process of implementing the materials is try things out. What works, what doesn't, how to share best practices with one another. Year 2 is really do it. Now that you feel more comfortable, you can, jump in and know the materials that work for you and then maybe try a few more. And then the final year is being able to really own it and reflect on what works, what doesn't, and then how do you move forward in the subsequent years. So that's what we've done for ELA K through 5 in the past, but for this year, 6 through 12 math, 6 through 12 ELA, and then 6 through 8 science. So in a nutshell, here's a summary of what it looks like. It's a really rigorous selection process. People really have to dig into materials. They really have to take a close look. They have to give each set of materials an equal look to make sure that we're really diving in and coming at it from an objective way and looking at a rubric. So there's creation of a vision. There's identifying priorities. What do we really want to look for, and then how do we stick to that throughout the process? They learn about selecting things from a rubric and not just getting a feel for, gee, this looks shiny and new, but rather what's a good fit for us out of all the materials that are out there that are really great materials. There are frequent meetings, sometimes during the school day, sometimes afterwards. There's a lot of feedback that goes along, and it's really the data that determines where we move and make a recommendation. So we try to make it as objective as we can by looking at rubrics, scoring materials based upon our daily experiences with them, and then combining that feedback and really putting it back to the teachers to say, in this teacher-driven process, what makes sense for what works for our kids. And then finally, building consensus and really getting away from the idea of there's a winner and there's a loser, but rather there is a whole wealth of materials out there that are great and what's a best fit. So for next steps for this year, there are communication pieces to be done with different vendors to let them know what we would move forward with in terms of a recommendation and ones that were not as great of a fit. And really being respectful of the vendors who have given their time and professional development, and they do their best to accommodate us and be respectful of that relationship as well. Next will be a final recommendation to school committee for the materials that we've looked at, and then entering purchasing process, which includes working with some partial funding from DESE. So approximately $150,000 for ELA materials we were awarded through a grant. and about $100,000 for math. From there, we'll schedule some initial training sessions so that hopefully we'll have enough materials in hand that if teachers want to get a taste of them before the school year, before June ends, we'll be able to do that, and then we'll also build on that coming back in August. So scheduling those initial training sessions and then planning for next year and beyond and what that looks like in terms of supporting teachers through that process.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And, you know, I just want to say that these new materials have been very well received from our teachers. You may remember a couple of years ago when we adopted the new curriculum, we were able to, through the grants, provide professional development. After the school year had ended, we had over 100 teachers that came in after the school year, and they came in to get some PD. We were able to fund that, pay them, pay the presenters, and it really set us off on the right foot as the new adoption. So we would plan on doing similar things as we adopt new curriculum to provide those learning opportunities, and then the support that we've provided through our professional development days over the year have helped to support those new curriculum materials, and I know we've gotten some really good feedback on that. So I want to thank Dr. Chase and her team for that and open it up to any questions that the committee might have on this process.
Any questions? Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Chase, under this schedule, will the new materials be implemented next school year, or is next year the trial and then a year after that?
So what you do for this year is by the end of this year, you make the purchase. You get the materials in before June 30th, and you start to do some of the professional development. And then the first day of the next year is when you start using those materials in earnest. So there's prep work beforehand. We get as much of that in as possible before people take off for trips and stuff over the summer. And then coming back in August, we really start to dig in.
And will this supplement the elementary math program?
Not yet. So we couldn't do that to the elementary folks because they're just in year 2 of implementation.
Right, and they all like that little penguin, right?
Oh, Gigi, yes.
Gigi,
From
yes.
SC
So
Math.
I wondered if this was more Gigi.
No, so the way that we brought our elementary folks in is they were part of that visioning process. We took some voices from the elementary. They've been involved in professional development this year to kick off the idea of this is coming. We have had some people say, it's time, can we go forward? So we do have a group that's ready to jump, but we couldn't do that in fairness to people who are just in the second year of the ELA adoption. So math for K-5 would be coming next.
Okay, no, thank you, that's good. And this will coordinate with the elementary, though. This is the middle and high school, that's right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Any other questions? Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you through the chair to Dr. Chase. Could you just tell me, what is the rotation schedule for the materials? Like, how many years do you do this for each one?
So when we look at this cycle, we look at a period of 3 years. And the reason that we look at that for 3 years is because in that time frame, you might have a lot of changes that come through with technology and so on. So that commitment is 3 years, and then you can adopt additional years as you go forward.
Okay, so it's 3 years to fully get one, and then you keep them for 3 years?
No, so it's 1 year for selection.
Yep,
And then there's 3 years of implementation.
yep.
And then you start to reflect again to say what's working, what's not working, because you're constantly renewing the technology piece of it.
Yeah.
So at that point, you come to a crossroads. Is it still doing the work that we need it to and we continue with it? Or are there new things out there that we look at and say we can either augment what we have, or we can be on that cycle again if necessary?
If necessary.
If necessary.
Right. So when you, the selection process for volunteers to go on these committees, around how many do you get?
So we can have anywhere upwards to like 25 is a good number. So we haven't said no to anybody. So we put it out there as an open invitation, see what we get in terms of volunteers. And then if you are not able to be on the curriculum selection committee, then you might want to be a field tester later on in the process when it's been narrowed down to a couple of vendors. Or you might want to be a teacher that's at a PD and is giving some feedback based upon the ability to look at the materials. So we want to make sure that everybody throughout the process has as much involvement as they want and feel necessary.
Do we, because it's volunteers, I guess, do we end up having the subject teachers on those committees?
Yes.
And do we require or have the department heads on those committees?
So for the ELA, yes, we have our department head on there. We also make sure that we have representation from special ed and from ELE. And also in math, yes.
Okay. I think that was like my concern. It's volunteers, but we do need a certain representation.
Do you have the representation?
Yeah, of the subject matter that they're
There's
going
some
to be using.
nudging there's some nudging that goes on, like if we're, in a spot where we need some representation, it might be nudge, nudge, would you consider doing this type of thing?
Okay.
But we tend not to refuse anyone that's willing to give their opinion, do the work with us.
Yeah, that would just be my concern.
Yeah.
That the right voices are in there.
They're in there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Any other questions? Okay. Dr.
All
Vidala?
right, so the last item is sort of a continuation, a little bit on this, so the Student Opportunity Act is, as you all know, in 2019, the Student Opportunity Act was designed to inject new funding into the educational system. 2 years ago, we had a significant increase in our Chapter 70 funds, which has been maintained, and we've seen increases in the subsequent years. Each district must submit a Student Opportunity Act, or SOA, plan to DESE each year. And basically, it's how are we spending the new funds that we're getting? Are we identifying the priority areas? And so the district must identify what they call evidence-based programs, or EBPs. So our focus in Peabody has been on the purchase and implementation on the curriculum material. So that's one of the big things, and so that's what we've dedicated our focus to. So 2.1B is supporting curriculum implementation. And so the language that they use for that is to engage teachers in professional development, linked directly to curriculum, and to set up a process to regularly monitor the effectiveness of the curriculum implementation. So that's really what we've been focusing on over the past 3 years, is identifying high-quality instructional materials, making sure that we provide support and implementation to make sure that the materials are being used, and then we have a monitoring system. So for us, it's the technology that we invest in terms of the STAR reading and math assessments that we do. So we partner with Renaissance to be able to do that. So that funding all counts towards our Student Opportunity Act plan. So that significant funding and supports that are dedicated to our PD, our technology, the coaches, the interventionists to support teachers to implement the curriculum resources. So all of that compiled together must reach a certain threshold. And so for us, the number this year that we saw an increase in Chapter 70 is about 1.7 million. So we way over shoot that number with all of the resources that we're putting into it. But so we create the plan, we submit it to DESE, and we say, we certify that we are expending enough funds on this priority area. And then we measure that through our common assessments and our data meetings, and we do that. So what we'd ask tonight is if the committee would support the SOA plan with the priority area of supporting curriculum implementation. We think that that is the best area to do. Is really a holistic view, and it hits all of our students. And happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Any questions? Yes, Mrs. Dunn.
It's not really a question, it's an agreement. I think this is what we have to do. Without curriculum, without strong curriculum and all the supports, we wouldn't be able to have excellent students. So I think it's a necessity, and I appreciate this, and I definitely am in support of it.
Would you like to make a motion, Mrs. Dunn?
Yes, I would. I'd like to make a motion that we submit the SOA language presented to us this evening by Dr. Vidala and his staff.
Great. Further motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. Thank you, Dr. Chase. Okay, next item is public participation. Is there anyone in the audience today that would like to come forward and speak? The microphone is open. Okay, seeing no one, do we have anybody that would like to join us virtually, Dr. Vidala?
Seeing no one online.
Okay. We'll go to written communication. We do have a number of written communications today. Some we've already covered during the course of the meeting. I'm just going to read the 7 written communications we have today. First is the MASC packet of nomination forms, also known as the Beverly Dunn election forms. Second is the NCEC fiscal year 25 budget. Third, communication from Principal Randall regarding library book surplus. 4, PVMHS field trip to Ecuador. Number 5, March student monthly attendance report. 6, March staff monthly attendance report. And 7, the March Bay State textiles report. Open those up for any discussion. Mrs. Dunn?
I'd like to make a motion that we receive all of those communications.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Olympio. All in favor, that's a unanimous vote to receive the 7 written communications this evening. Any comments or questions on any of those items, Mrs. Dunn?
Yes, I will thank you for mentioning my name with MASC. But we do need to take a vote to nominate a delegate to attend the delegate assembly. And I can tell you there are a lot of really heavy resolutions coming already before MASC about funding for the schools. There was a question a couple of meetings ago, I think it was you, Mr. Amico, that brought it up about, oh gosh, I apologize. It was a different schools district was asking for our support on a resolution. And actually, MASC has been speaking with legislators about increasing the funding that comes through for Chapter 70 and improving the formula that's used to determine it. So there's a question of whether we need to sign on with that resolution or just wait until May 6th at the Day on the Hill. We may have even more news for you about that. I know that the superintendents are also pushing for that because it's a glitch in the way that the funding was calculated this year. And it needs to be repaired so that we can have the adequate amount of money to support the schools. So things like that are already on the horizon for that delegate assembly. It's going to be a really big one this year.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Do we have a nomination?
I nominate Beverly Griffin Dunn
Thank you.
as our delegate.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter nominating Beverly Griffin Dunn to be our representative, seconded by Mr. Amico. Unanimous vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I would be there anyway, but thank you. I wouldn't be able to vote, though, without the approval of the committee. And I may come back to you and say, how would you like me to vote on this? There's a lot of stuff going on this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. We'll go now to subcommittee reports, item 8. So first, Education Subcommittee, Mr. Amico.
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you. Finance, Mr. Olympio.
Nothing new to report.
School Safety.
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Quality and Standards, Mrs. Dunn.
Nothing new to report.
Parent and Student Advisory Boards.
I'm scheduling a parent advisory board meeting for mid-May. I don't have the date yet, but I will get back to you. And it's not part of the report, but I am happy to say that the citywide PTO is doing great. They are scheduled for a meeting in May, and they're really working hard together. So it's nice to see that.
Great. Did I miss Athletics and Wellness? Just hold that for Jared, and as well as a couple of others. Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio?
Yes, I'll be scheduling a meeting probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks for the month of May. Thank you.
Thank you. City Council and Legislative Delegation, Mrs. Carpenter?
Nothing to report.
Okay. And Performing Arts, Mr. Swanson?
Yes, quickly, thank you. Couple quick updates. The house lights at the high school, which we've been having conversations about for the last year or so, were finally replaced, so in the auditorium. So we'll be able to see brightly, and Mr. Simmons is looking forward to being able to play with those during the performances as well. So it's going to give a new atmosphere to that auditorium. Tomorrow morning, the high school Performing Arts group is leaving for the school field trip that we approved. They're going to see, I believe, 3 different shows, go to several museums. So it's a very cultural experience for them, and they're going to go down to New York City for that. And then lastly, with us voting in the new approach for fifth grade students and the learning of instruments coming to fruition. They'll be visiting the Higgins Middle School. Each of the elementary schools will be visiting over the next few weeks to experience it up here at the high school, at the middle school, and then be able to understand when they make a selection what they'll be forming here as a larger group. So that's moving forward, and Mr. Simmons has given us a lot of good feedback about how that program has progressed this year. So we want to thank everybody for that, for helping out and supporting that. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Okay. Nothing listed under the new business tonight. Items for the next agenda. Our next meeting is Tuesday, May 14th. I'd like everybody to pencil off that evening for a couple of hours for the budget. Dr. Vidal and I are going to be meeting very shortly and going to propose some other dates for everybody. I appreciate everybody's patience. This has been a difficult budget on my end. We're working through our city departments, getting very close to the end, which I needed to do in order to come forward to all of you with where we're at. So please block off that evening. Probably be a long evening that night. And then Dr. Vidal and I will work on some other dates for everybody. Okay? All right. We'll move to adjourn. Thank you, everybody, for a very positive meeting. Thank you.